When you don't move smoothly from one chord to the next, it makes your playing sound like you're a beginner. So if you're struggling with transitioning from one chord to the next, despite regular practice, in this video, we're going to tackle some of the common hurdles and introduce you to some techniques that will make your playing your transition seem seamless and effortless. Let me first start out by acknowledging, man, listen, I know exactly what it feels like and how frustrating it can be when you're practicing constantly and you don't feel like you're making any progress. The same thing happened to me. Like, I didn't come out just being able to play up and down the neck of the guitar. I struggled. Either I was just doing, like, I was moving too fast, didn't sure where I was going. It was just a lot of different things that made me frustrated despite how much I practiced. There are a few things that people fall into, 3 categories. Typically, the first one is rushing. All right, so when it comes to rushing is just whenever you're moving too quickly. I've had plenty of times when I was trying to get from one chord to the next, not really sure where to go, and it's just like I'm pushing too hard, right? One of the things that definitely helped me was practicing with a metronome, right? So I would get my metronome, I'm gonna grab my smartphone, and I would set the metronome very slow, right? So I would put it on like maybe 63, right? So I would practice with that going from one chord to the next, right? So 3, 4, next chord, and then next chord. It would help me make sure I stayed in sync and I wasn't trying to like move too quickly, because sometimes because I didn't want to mess up or whatever, I thought I was trying to over anticipate. And then I'm all in my head. So rushing was definitely one of the first things that I was definitely making me like, hey, I need to like figure this out. So practicing with the metronome definitely helped me kind of get my anxiety down, not feeling like I was rushing. It's one of those things where you want to make sure you're breathing and not holding your breath. I used to hold my breath when I was playing. I don't know why I did that, but I used to hold my breath when I was playing. And maybe that was what caused me to rush too, because I was so nervous and anxious to try to get to the next point. I had to slow myself down. So practicing with the metronome in order to keep the beat definitely helped me maintain in the manner that I wanted to maintain in. All right, point number 2, not practicing placing your fingers in a more effective position. You want to limit the amount of time that it takes you to move from one chord to the next using your pointer finger, right? So what I've learned is my pointer finger is kind of like my guide on the neck of the guitar. It kind of helps me to get from one point to the next. So as I'm looking at it, my pointer finger, if I'm playing in C major, I know my 1, I'm looking at my pointer finger starts at the root note. If I want to go to my 2, my pointer finger is going to guide me. So knowing that my pointer finger is going to guide me, it kind of eliminates me not overshooting, like me, okay, I'm going to 2 instead of going right there. I know that the 2 is 2 frets up. I'm allowing my pointer finger. I'm not trying to guess which finger should I use in order to form the chord. Like you want to use your pointer finger as the anchor every time to let you know where you need to go, so that way you're not guessing which finger you need to use in order to make the chord and you're finding yourself all over the place and you're missing. Use more effective positionings with your pointer finger. Let your pointer finger be your guide. 1, I'm going to slide up to 2, slide up to 3, but you need to know the positions on the neck of the guitar. And I get really in depth in this in my N2S system, which stands for notes, numbers, and shapes, right? So you really want to just dive deep into that. So without understanding that for real, like knowing the position sometimes of the chords and knowing where to go, that could probably be problematic as well. All right. And point number 3 is not seeing the next chord. There's no anticipation of the next chord. You're just kind of just floating. You're not visualizing. You're not looking at, okay, what's supposed to come next? Like not looking at, either you have the chord charts written down somewhere and you know, like, okay, the progression is going to be 1, 2, 4, 3, 5. Like you don't know where you're going. So you're kind of just like, you're floating. So you're not really thinking about it. You're not visualizing where to place your hands at for the next chord. And you find yourself missing. So the transitions are like, you're trying to catch up. The transitions aren't smooth. All right. So you're missing the overall thing. All right. So just to recap, just to kind of give you a spot where we are before we get into the exercise that I want you to practice with at least 15 minutes a day. All right. First thing is rushing, moving too quickly, not using a metronome and not practicing with it, right? Second is not knowing how to use your pointer finger as your anchor point, using different fingers in order to try to like line you up where the chord is supposed to be. Then also not really in conjunction with like not using a pointer finger, but not knowing where the chords are. Like if you're not familiar with the spacing, right? That's another thing that you probably want to study. Then also, there's no anticipation. You're just kind of waiting. You're waiting too late. Like you're moving too slow. You're not visualizing where the next chord is supposed to go. So here's a good exercise that I would probably do. Like I do this inadvertently, kind of, because I've been doing it for a long time. But for you to focus it on targeting and working on these specific areas, grab your phones. Let's do that now. If we don't already have a metronome downloaded, let's download a metronome and let's put it on about 60 to 63, right? I have it on 63 and let's just let it go, right? Because what we're going to do is we're going to work on rushing. We're going to work on visualization of the chords. We're going to work on making sure we're using our pointer finger to guide us, right? The three things that we focus in on, right? So we're going to be in the key of C major. You can do this in any key, but I like to be in C. And then we can modulate because the spacing of the chord doesn't change. Only the notes change, all right? Excuse me. So let's just practice with it, right? So the metronome's going. 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. So we've gotten used to what that feels like, right? Get into the rhythm. Work on your breathing. Make sure you're not holding your breath trying to anticipate. Breathe in between the beats, right? The progression is going to be 1, 2, 4, 3, and then 5. Let's say that again. 1, 2, 4, 3, and then 5. Okay. So this is what it'll sound like with me practicing. So I'm putting my metronome. Oh, my hands aren't in the right space. So let's get it right. Still not didn't do it again. So let's make sure I'm getting too nervous. So what I need to do is I need to go back and make sure my hands. Okay, I'm in the right space now. So this can happen in your practice time. You may be like trying to anticipate, be a little nervous. Just breathe. Calm yourself down and just breathe. Because now it's like, okay, it's moment of truth. Let's calm ourselves down. Let's breathe. 1, 2, 3, 4. Next chord. 1, 2, 3. Next chord. When we get to that 4, 3, it's going to be a little push. And then 5. One of the things I like to do too, I like to look at the neck of the guitar. It lets me know, like, I don't have to look up the whole time or close my eyes and be like, I have to make the work harder for myself. I like to look and visualize. Okay, I know 2 frets up. So I need to know the positions on where the neck of the guitar, where I'm going, right? So there's certain target points. That's why I like C, because C allows us to see those target points. Super easy until we learn the spacing, until we're familiar with the spacing, right? The next, for the first chord is on the first fret die, right? The next chord is on the second fret die. The fourth chord that we're going to the fourth is a half fret past the third. And the third position is on the third fret die. So it just kind of takes a lot of the guesswork out, right? Visualize. 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 5. I know it's right on top of 1. Now, if you're a little bit more advanced, you're a little bit more intermediate, you can start adding some other things in, but you still want to work on the same concepts of working on your time. This is an example of what it could look like too. Let's get our metronome back on so we can practice. So the concept holds true for you. If you're a little bit more advanced in your playing and you can practice the same concepts using your pointer fingers to understand the guide. I like to stay in C because it helps me initially when I'm learning that there's reference dots, right? And most of the points, when I'm looking at my especially in the way that I teach the number system, that's one of the ways that I teach it. So it's easier for us to understand where the spacing is and I don't have to guess, right? I know that majority of the fret dots, 1, 2, 3, those are my 3 target points. The first fret dot, that's my 1. The second fret dot that's my 2. The third reference dot, that's my 3, right? And the half step up is 4. If I go back to my 1, right on top of 1 is 5. Right on top of 2 is 6. Right on top of 3 is 7. So it just helps me to understand until I work on understanding and get a better grasp of the spacing, right? You practice these things at least 15 minutes a day is definitely going to see improvement in your overall sound and tone and confidence. Breathe. I know for me, I used to hold my breath. I don't know why that was my thing, but I used to hold my breath. Breathe while you're going through these exercises so that way that you don't get too anxious and you find yourself rushing or not having enough oxygen because you're holding your breath to try to get through and your transitions are like horrible. Practice this. If you practice this effectively, you're going to start to see some transitions and start to see some growth and improvement in your overall tone.